is here. Julien, how are you? How's Paris? How's the evening?
Good morning, Max, and Happy New Year, I guess. The evening is
Happy New
beautiful. How
Year.
was
How dare I not start with that?
yeah, well, exactly. How was a celebration for you this year? Or last year, should I say by now?
Last year, yeah. Well, into this year. It was good. Quiet family stuff, which is kind of how we roll. How about you?
Actually, more more thing happened than usual. I'm not a big New Year party guy, but yeah, good family time. Brought a few friends in. That was actually great. And my favorite part of it is we had plenty of food, which
Nice.
is
Nice.
more important to me
That's
than the drinks. So from that perspective, that was a great party. So yeah, definitely. And new year, new resolutions, and a new format for weekly meetings. So hope you appreciate the new environment you're in right now.
I do. I feel so pink, and I notice you have the chair and I have the couch. So I'm thinking it's my turn on the couch, and there's another bit of format change here.
Exactly, because
Um,
it's your turn, but it's not your turn. It's
right, right.
let's try
It's
something new,
it's
right?
it's an anonymous friend's turn. And
Okay.
what we're doing now is we've got the mailbag, and we're going to have folks uh, submitting emails or LinkedIn chats or however you want to get to us, direct message on Twitter or whatever it takes. We're looking for your stories about your issues with the
Customer
customer
experiences.
experience that you need some therapy for. And I got a Lollapalooza to kick all of this off. So if you
All right.
want, I can work as a proxy for this poor person who I see why they chose to stay anonymous on this one. It's not that there's anything embarrassing, but it's so frustrating. I'm not sure I'd want to be out there publicly venting this loudly.
Well, you're
Um,
on the couch, so if you're on the couch and you got a story, even if it's not yours, please, by all means, tell us what is that all about.
all right, I'll read the story. So common in the US, it's a cable company that we're
Okay.
having the issue with. And this person, I guess, we've talked about this a little bit. The cable companies will bundle stuff. And this person had multiple services and they wanted to cancel one of them. Doesn't say what it was, but they just were going to cancel a piece of their overall package. So they got on their cell phone and they looked up the cable company to get the phone number, and they called, and whoever they got, it sounds like the guy was kind of surly and a little bit challenging to work with, but pretty quickly they were able to cancel the service. And the other thing they say is they were contemplating a new, looking at the core price for the cable service. They'd gotten a flyer from a competitor. So they were there to cancel the service. They were kind of curious about the other. And before they could bring that up, the guy said, "Oh, and, looking at your internet plan, it's really poor. And I think we could do something better for you." So, like, okay, good. They're drifting into what I want. This is nice. Um, and it says, I think I'm reading this right. Um, it says that when the guy from the cable company reviewed the plan that they had, he got some of the facts wrong. He said the speed was slower than it really was, and the expiration date was wrong, or that that it's going to go to a higher rate. Rate was wrong, and they were kind of confused by that. But they talked a little bit, and the guy said, "Oh, and I've got this much better plan, and it's this, and it's cheaper, and it's faster." And they're kind of like, "Okay, well, tell me a little bit more." And this guy was the way this guy must have been really pushy, because the way this guy just said, "Tell me more about the plan," was he started talking about how it would get installed. And he said, "We're going to have somebody come out. We're going to get you a new box from this vendor, and it's 5G." It
Okay.
was a different vendor, and it was a totally different offering. So the person was really confused, and then got into a very confusing conversation for a while. And it turned out what happened was they put in the search in the phone. Whatever this company is, it's a reseller. So they put in an ad. So they came up before the cable company's phone number came up. So they had an ad for this company. They called thinking it was the cable company. The guy even played along enough to say he was going to cancel this part of their service. And then, it took, I don't know how long, it doesn't say how long into the conversation, but it took a long time for them to figure out they were talking to a reseller. They weren't talking to the cable company at all. And, they it's interesting. They looked up the company. They didn't give the company name here. And this is one where we probably should get it because this whole thing is so shady. But they looked up the company name, and they didn't see any like fraud or specific things like that. But they started worrying. They didn't give, they didn't go through with any orders or anything, but they started giving some personal information out. But the guy it appeared to legitimately be, what they say here is it appears to have legitimately been a reseller because the guy knew it was dated, but they had information on their plan. He was able to look stuff up. I don't think he'd be able to do that just if you were a fraudster. So that was their experience. They, went to do a simple cancellation, fell into a trap, didn't succeed with their cancellation, and at least they were smart enough to not buy anything from these guys.
Wow. That's pretty interesting story to start the year with.
Yeah, it's a painful. It's a good thing we've got a couch. It's good that, I got it right back there. I needed with this, even just retelling it for somebody.
It kind of reminds me of a story we had end of last year, first or second week of December, I guess, where I got into a discussion with my telco. I wanted to cancel the telco, sign up with a second one who ended up being a reseller for another one who was actually leveraging the network of the first one. But the major difference here is there was no scam. Or at least, I'm not sure we can call it a scam, even though that's very much borderline at this point. But they are using people's lack of ability to look at details when they click on ads on Google. I don't know how you would call that, but it seems to be purposely built in a way that you would try to trick people into believing something that's not true. And that's never a good place to start any kind of business.
Yeah, and and my thing about that is more on Google than the business. Google's the one that puts it up so prominently that you really have to double check. And I've gotten real good on my laptop. I never make that mistake. But on the phone, in a search, here's the first phone number. I stupidly, I wasn't thinking ad. So I almost think Google gets more blame than, that this company is just taking advantage of a feature that Google makes available.
Right. Right. But what is quite interesting here is I would understand why some companies would try to do that when they are selling a product. Because once a product is sold, it's sold. You may not get repeat customers, but if your pool is large enough and your product is expensive enough, a sale is a sale, and you could potentially be happy with this.
Sure.
Still, not good practice, but I get it. But here we're talking about subscription. So if you're, trick people into signing up for something, even though you may sign a sale, chances are they're going to unsubscribe very quickly after once they realize that's not actually what I was buying in the first place, unless you're so confident in both the quality of your product or service and the quality of the service attached to this, meaning, the customer service following with this, then you could feel, okay, we've tricked them into signing up, but they're going to be so happy with what we have to sell that ultimately there will be no regret. But still, it
Well,
feels...
you're bringing up something that's making me think of a whole other angle of this. And this was kind of ties to the one you were talking about a while ago, where it was the brand selling the brand and the brand. Who would I call for tech support when I had a problem? Would I call the reseller? What kind of support are they going to provide? Would I call the provider? Is the provider going to... I'd probably be stuck with a reseller. So now you've got a fly-by-night company, and it could have been something where there was a year's service and a big cancellation fee, so I'd be stuck with them for a year. I being the buyer here,
Yeah.
but that's scary and tricky. You're right. The service thing is a big deal.
So, I mean, there are a couple of things we can get from that. First, from a customer perspective, I guess just never trust anything you see on Google without verifying a little bit.
Yeah. Make sure never click on anything that says ad. That's become my bylaw.
Well, I would not necessarily say that, because every now and then you actually get something more valuable in the ad than in the organic results. But at least be careful with what you're clicking on. We've always been told for the past many years, before entering your credit card, double check that you have HTTPS, that you have the little lock in the top left corner, all this kind of stuff. But even beyond that, just make sure the logo, the domain name, everything kind of matches up with what you're trying to achieve, because just typing a phone number. Now, I'm guessing since you see the phone number from Google, you may not even go on the website in the first place, and you may just be calling up, which is a double win for the company, by the way, because it did not cost them a click. If no click has been done on the ad itself, it's actually a very lucrative way of tricking people. But yeah, I'd be careful with phone numbers. Plus, I don't know if that's still a thing in the US. It definitely is in Europe. You still have phone numbers that you need to pay for when you're calling. So before calling any number, especially coming from a website or an ad you're not too sure about, just make sure you're not going to be paying for the communication and they're going to put you on hold for 20 minutes.
Yeah. There was an old Simpsons routine. They're called 900 numbers here. So the 800 are the toll-free, the 900 is the pay. There was an old Simpsons episode where Homer started one, and so the greeting was, "Hello. We're so glad you called." Just everything was stretching out.
Well, that's another kind of tricky business we might want to look into. But so that's for the customer part, and for your anonymous sender, maybe just a word of advice: just make sure you know what you're clicking on, or make sure what phone number you're calling, even if it's not a 900 number. But from a company perspective, I'm really, the angle I would be taking here is, we've been touching on this multiple times in 2022. It's short-term versus long-term. There is always a way to, back to the same story again. There is always a way to trick your customers into taking a bigger plan they have not necessarily agreed with. There is a way to increase your prices. There is a way to make slight changes in the contract with very unreadable fine prints that no one is going to read, and you can collect the money for a while. You can always have this short-term shortcuts to make additional money. And while that could actually very much help your short-term business, there is no way to do long-term business with these strategies. And tricking people, unless, again, you're so certain that your service is amazing and people are going to love it and actually be happy they've been tricked by you in the first place, chances are they're not going to be long-term customers, and they're not going to give you very good reviews on their way out. So it could actually backfire pretty quickly. It doesn't sound like a very reasonable way of doing any kind of business.
I agree. I think it's very short-sighted. Just almost predatory, really.
It is. It does feel that way. I don't know if that's going to be a satisfactory outcome for your anonymous sender. If you can, by any chance, do a quick catch up and maybe give us some news next week, that'd be fantastic.
Sure, I can do that. I'll reach out and see how they feel about it.
Perfect. And please keep it coming. Hopefully I'll receive something by next week. I must admit that's a slow start of the year. I have not received the story quite yet. So we have 7 days. Hopefully someone will send me something, because I'd love to keep that format. I feel that's a good new format for us in 2023. Good resolution. It would be good if we could keep good resolution for longer than a week this year. Because the one with the new diet never took off.
Yeah. Or the exercise, or the...
Exactly. So feel free to send us stories. We'd be happy to talk about your stories, whether good or bad. It doesn't hurt to have a good story every now and then.
I love a good story.
It does feel good every now and then, right? So please keep them coming. And Max, hope you and your sender feel better about it. In any case, I'll try to have one by next week, and I'll be lying on that couch. Sounds good?
All right. That sounds great. Thanks, Julien. Take care.
Perfect. Thanks, Max. Bye.
Bye.